All right, so we are back up and running again. So we have our macarons. They should be sitting out somewhere on your counter, and your oven should be preheated to about 300 degrees. So I know some of you are going to be kind of hopping on here in a few minutes. So I'll let you guys get started and let you guys get on so that you can see what we're going to do next. So this next part is going to be the baking part and also making of the filling. This will be really kind of short because I'm going to give you some tips and tricks that you can use to help along the way, and then you'll get on baking, and then you'll be able to fill them and pipe them yourselves, and I'll give you some tips to help you with that. So I see a bunch of people joining on and started here. So what we're going to do is your oven should be on 300 degrees, and we're going to bake for 17 minutes. So I'll type that in the comments so you can see that. So we're going to have the oven at 300 degrees and bake for 17 minutes. So I actually went ahead and got mine in the oven because I wanted to be able to show you here after we make the filling what it looks like. So if your macarons are out on the table, go ahead and put those into the oven. Set a timer for 17 minutes because we don't want to over bake them. And then also turn on your oven light so that you can check it out as it's going, because we're going to be looking for a few things as they're going. So I have my oven light on right now, and because then I can kind of see what's happening as we're baking. So I have that in the comments there, the degrees for the oven, as well as the how long we're going to be baking them for. So we're going to make our frosting. If you made the cupcakes with me the other day on Monday, I see a lot of guys are joining back on. Awesome. If you made the cupcakes, we're going to use the same buttercream frosting. So if you'd have some left over, you actually could just use that. And you can do kind of like anything you want with this filling. So we're going to make just a regular vanilla buttercream, and then we'll kind of go from there. So we're just going to take our room temperature butter, which is going to be just one stick, because we don't need that much filling for this recipe. So I'm going to use my spatula, get my one stick of butter in my bowl. And then we're going to take, so is it important to let them sit? No. So if you're wondering, like, should I put them in the oven? Should I wait or not? Touch the top of one of your macarons. If it feels like it has like a little crust on the top, then you're good. Then they're dry enough and they're good to go into the oven. If they're still kind of a little sticky, just wait and leave them sit out a little bit longer. It's anywhere between like 30 minutes to an hour that you want to let them wait and sit. But if there's a little crust on the top and it feels like it's almost like a little shell, you're good to throw them in the oven and get them in there for 17 minutes. So we're going to start our buttercream. We have a stick of butter in here. And we're going to start off with 1 cup of powdered sugar. Great questions, everyone. I'm going to use my hand mixer this time since it's not that much of an amount to mix. So yeah, we're just mixing in here our powdered sugar and our butter into the mixture. We're going to be using heavy cream and a little bit of milk whichever one you have, Since mine's getting a little bit challenging to not splash all over the place, I'm just going to put in a little bit of heavy cream. All right, I'm going to add in another cup of powdered sugar. So this is a total of 2 cups. Oh, great question, Terry. So just for everyone baking here, we're going to put, this is the 2nd cup of powdered sugar. So I'm going to put the 2nd cup of powdered sugar in there, and that's going to be it for the sugar. So 2 cups of powdered sugar. And then I'm just adding in a little bit of heavy cream. If you have milk, that's fine, just so it doesn't splash everywhere, just because this bowl is a little bit crazy for me today. That's not going to harm it to do that out of order. Okay, so once we have like a pretty good mixture there, I'm going to add in a little bit of vanilla. So I'm going to add in about 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla in the frosting. So about 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. And then just like a tiny, tiny, tiny pinch of salt if you're using unsalted butter. So I'm using unsalted butter, so I'm going to add in a little bit of salt, just a tiny, tiny pinch, maybe like 1/8 teaspoon, something like that. And then I'm going to put a little bit more heavy cream because I want this to be really, really fluffy, really light. I don't want it to be a stiff buttercream because I don't want it to break the cookie when I go to pipe it on. Okay, I'm going to scrape down the sides, and while I'm doing that, Terry asked an awesome question, and she said, how come some people call them macarons and some people call them macaroons? So they're actually 2 different cookies. So macaron or macaron, which is how they would say it in French with the nice nasally sound, that's what we're making. We're making a macaron, whereas a macaroon is the cookie that's like a really fluffy cookie that then is coated in coconut, and then you like bake those, and that's like kind of like a traditional cookie that some people make. So those are macaroons, and we're making macarons or macarons, if you would say it in French. And my friend Lisa or Brian, who speak very good French, would be able to say it very well. So I'm going to keep mixing this a little bit just to get this nice and fluffy. And I added a little bit more heavy cream or milk, whichever you have, to get that just really light. awesome. That looks really good. So this is actually at the point where if you want to make a different flavor of macaron, like some people like to make a chocolate filling where they would add like a little bit of cocoa powder in here to make it chocolate. Or maybe they would take a little mint extract and put it in here, and they would make like a chocolate mint. And then they'd make like the cookies, instead of making it whatever color you made, they would make it green. Or you could do something like take a a strawberry extract and put that in here, or like lemon or something like that, and you would flavor the frosting. You actually don't flavor the cookie. The cookie stays the same no matter what. You just can kind of change the color. And then what you do is you alter the filling and change that up. So the other week when I made these, when I was filling them and piping them, in the center of the cookie, I put a little bit of jam and then put some strawberry buttercream around the outside. So all I did was add strawberry extract in here. Another kind I made is I took lavender extract and put it in here, and then put a drop of honey in the center of the cookie, and piped around the lavender frosting, and made like a honey lavender one. So you can kind of do like whatever you want to. For today, I'm just going to make like the regular vanilla ones, where like a regular buttercream. If you have some extracts at home that you use for baking, like probably the one that's the most common that people have is probably lemon, I would assume. You could do that. Or if you have some jam sitting in your fridge, when we go to pipe them, you can put a little jam in the center and then pipe around the outside. But this is a great point to stop and take a look at your macarons. So take a look in your oven and peek and see, what are your cookies doing? Hopefully, what they should be doing is around the outside of the cookie at the bottom, it should almost look like they are kind of like bubbling out a little bit, like a little skirt around the bottom, and they should be rising up. So what you call the little bubbles around the outside is called the feet. So what you want the feet to do is you want the feet to kind of have a little texture on them, and then you want the cap of the cookie to raise up. So some things that might happen as you're baking, you might notice like, oh wait, my feet have kind of expanded out and they didn't really rise up. Or the cookie doesn't seem like it's really rising properly. Maybe it's like slanted, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's going out more than it is up. Those kind of things, there's actually websites you can go and do like troubleshooting for macarons. Ooh, nice. I like that April's going to experiment with some flavors with her cookies, which that's always fun. With her fillings, and use some oils in there. That's going to be delicious. So there's troubleshooting of like, maybe you overmixed it. Maybe your egg whites weren't whipped as much as they could be, all those kind of things. So I'm actually down to just a couple seconds. So my timer just went off for my 17 minutes. I started it a little bit before yours. And I'm trying to decide, I'm taking a look at them and seeing whether they should, I think I'm going to let them stay in for about another minute. And I think I'm going to raise the temperature up just a little. I'm going to take mine to 310 because the feet didn't rise as much as I wanted them to. And so I might have maybe over whipped mine and waited a little bit too long since I was explaining so much. I'm just going to go ahead and put some of my frosting into the piping bag. So what we're going to do is, as you have this already, I'm going to give you some tips, and then I'm not going to wait for all of mine to bake or cool and fill them, but I'm going to show you what they should look like when you pull them out of the oven, and then how to pipe one of them, and then some different techniques you can use to kind of figure it out. And again, as always, like when we're finished, please, please send me pictures and send me what yours look like. No matter what they look like, if they look incredible and they're better than mine, please show them to me. If you had some failures and some things mess up along the way, don't worry. Send it to me. I might be able to find some tips for you for if you ever want to adventure in macaron making again. So I think mine are going to be ready to pull out here from the oven. Okay, so mine were actually a little bit larger than I wanted to. I probably wasn't paying super close attention to piping them when I was talking. So mine are a little bit big. Ooh, and I see 2 of mine cracked, which definitely happens. So it kind of just depends on your baking, whether they're going to crack or not. Like the temperature. I have some frosting on here. I don't want that to melt to the bottom of my pan. So I have one that cracked. It's no big deal. Like it's still going to taste really good, and it's going to be fine. So how many cups of sugar did I use for the icing? Yeah, I used 2 cups of sugar, of the powdered sugar, and 1 stick of butter. And you can kind of taste test a little bit. I did put vanilla in it. I put a half a teaspoon of vanilla. So my cookies are looking okay. The feet didn't rise like as much as I would want them to. What we want them to do is we want to allow them to cool completely. And we want to let them sit on a wire rack if you have that. If you don't, so I have a nice little wire rack that I'm going to take some of mine off once they're ready to go. So I would let them sit on here for a few minutes if they stick. So if you look at them and you're like, uh-oh, they're all stuck to the bottom, just put them back into the oven for a few more minutes and let them dry out a little bit more. So I actually see that this tray probably should use a few more minutes or maybe a minute or 2 in the oven because they are sticking to the bottom. And like I said, like macarons are a challenging thing to do and have lots of different things. And I left my oven on for that reason. So maybe yours are getting ready to pull out of the oven at this point, depending on when you put them in. So what should happen is when we pull them out of the oven, they should be sitting maybe for like a minute or 2 to let them cool a little bit, let the bottom seal, and then they should be able to lift off. And if they're made perfectly, which again is really challenging, is they should have like a nice crust on the bottom, nice crust on the top, and they should have their little feet on the outside. So I'm going to take a look at what mine look like. So my oven is at the right temp now. I just increased it a little bit to help it dry out. And so we're just going to try to see if we can dry them a little bit more. That's basically all we're doing. That's why our oven temperature is so low. It's at 300 as opposed to being like at a 350 if we're baking a cake or something like that. 300 just allows it for a lower heat to be able to just take the moisture out of the cookie and just allow it to dry out so the meringue can stay kind of stiff in there. So I'm going to check these in another minute and then we'll see. So hopefully yours are turning out nicely in the oven. You can let me know if you have questions, if you're looking at yours, seeing what they look like as they're waiting, or if you're going to experiment with some different flavors, because that's always fun to be able to do. Okay, so I'm going to pull these out again. Okay, what you're gonna do at this point, once you have yours out of the oven, I'm just gonna give you some piping tips, and then, of course, I'll be available. Like, you can send me an email, send me a message for questions. If once you're going, I'll be available here as we finish up, just for individual things that might have gone wrong or gone really well. So we're gonna let them cool on the cookie sheet for a little bit. And then after like 2 minutes, I'm just gonna pull the parchment paper off, and I'm gonna let them sit on just the like the parchment paper on my countertop. Let them cool a little bit, and then I'm gonna transfer them to the wire rack. And then what we should do is we just wanna let them sit on this wire rack. They're not gonna dry out because they already are dry, because they're a meringue, so you don't have to worry about that. So let them sit until they're completely cool. And then what you'll do is you're gonna take a little bit of the buttercream frosting that we made, and maybe if you're doing a little bit of jam or a little bit of something, and you're gonna put that in the center of the cookie. So I'm gonna pull off my sheet here. Let them sit. And so what you'll do is you're going to fill that with just a small amount. Don't put too much in because it is a really, really tiny, tiny cookie. So you're just gonna put it around the outside, because once you put your two cookies together, you don't wanna press because these are really, really fragile cookies. So you just wanna put it around the outside and then put the second cookie on it and then let them sit. And now, this is kind of the strange thing that people are like, kind of not sure that they really knew that this happened. So when you make macarons at a French patisserie, you actually would make the macarons the day before you sell them, because there's this process called blooming. So when you make a macaron, you actually can and or should let the macarons sit together with the frosting in the middle, in a container or something, in a box, like a pastry box, and let them bloom, which means you want that frosting to kind of like saturate a little bit through that crust on the inside. And you want everything to be perfectly cool, perfectly room temperature, and it allows everything to kind of settle back down and dry even more. So they actually allow a 24-hour period of time to go by before they're actually going to sell them. And then they're good for, several days afterwards because they're a dry cookie. So what you're doing is you're letting them rest and sit on your parchment paper, on your counter, and then you're going to pull them off carefully, and you're going to let them sit. Again, if they stick to the bottom at all, you can just go ahead and put them back into the oven, and you'll set them on your wire rack to be able to dry and cool. And then the whole idea is that the outside is crunchy and the inside is chewy, of the cookie, and then you have your delicious filling to add to that. So let me know if you have any questions, because the cooling process will take a little bit. And then otherwise, this will be the end of the video for today. Remember to send me some pictures. Let me know how it goes. Let me know if they're delicious. And then Friday, we're going to make our fruit tort. So it's going to be like literally the easiest thing that we've made so far. So if you've been like, wow, this is kind of crazy, it's a little challenging, don't worry. The one on Friday is going to be super simple. So let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, we'll see you on Friday. Hopefully you can join for the fruit tort. That's a really great thing to have for dessert, or even almost like a breakfast, like a coffee cake kind of thing. It just has fruit in it. So thanks so much for joining. I love that you are enjoying this and you're enjoying having something to do during this time where we're just hanging out at home. So thanks so much, and hope you guys have a great day. Just send me a message if you have any questions. Awesome. We'll see you later.